Hello and welcome to today's Battle Mech review. Today I had a very fun intro ready to go, but the gods of the Comnet decided that it wasn't meant to be, so I improvised on something. The Gunslinger is a mech that is, basically built by the Lyran Commonwealth and the Draconis Combine in equal fashions, even though the Combine has a few more recent models of it. The thing is, those machines are on both sides of the borders in fairly large amounts, and they're fairly popular nowadays. And they were built clearly as a response to a threat that was much bigger than either of the factions imagined originally. So let's get into it. The Gunslinger's design comes from a tripartite meeting between the most likely candidates for fighting against the clans, with the Federated Commonwealth, mainly the Steiner portion of the realm, the Draconis Combine, and the Free Rasalhague Republic. Engineers from all three factions brought coffee, a large amount of alcohol, and probably some local delicacies, even though you might not want to try some of those Rasalhague things. I'm not a fan of lutefisk. But they all came together and started thinking of, well, what can we do to fight against the clans? There were various designs already being taught up. I mean, you've seen things like the Penetrator. You've seen things like the Hollander. A lot of things were trying to imitate what the clans were bringing in or try to fight them on more or less equal footing. It was a decent idea at the time, and there was the other things that were being brought up, but all those engineers started focusing on a fairly straightforward and efficient design. In the end, the team settled on a few different things. The new design had to be an assault mech at the 85-ton range, because the Auscarita guys really wanted something to match with their Crockets. It didn't need to be too mobile, but it needed to be able to jump. Someone brought that up. It needed to have rear-firing weapons in order to protect its weaker rear armor. That was a Federated Sons thing. They're the only ones who really put rear-facing weapons and don't flip them forward 95% of the time. And all internal components should be easily sourced so no one component could prevent it to be built just about anywhere else. The fact engineers from 3 or almost 4 nations here, if you look at the Federated Commonwealth being the Lyran Commonwealth and the Federated Sons, and they were not quite as integrated as they wanted, getting into it was already kind of a miracle. While the Lyrans would like to call it the Kanonbuten, or whatever they say there, the actual agreement was actually called the Design the Gunslinger in honor of the old SLDF Gunslinger program. The Advanced Combat and Maneuvering Skills Project was basically where the Star League sent their elite pilots to get even better. Basically, the Draconis Combine had a bunch of people with mechs but no war to fight, so they were going around just challenging people to duels all the time, and the SLDF didn't like that. So they sent their best pilots in their best mechs to go and take down the Combine Ronin, basically. The Combine really remembered the Gunslinger program because it did kill quite a few people, including some fairly high-ranking nobles over the years. And, the other people kind of liked the idea of the Gunslinger program and integrated it in the name of this mech. You have to realize that the Gunslinger program is pretty much how the clans adapted all their dueling techniques and a lot of that old Zelbringen thing that they keep doing. So there is a lot of historical significance to that particular program. The plans were ready just as Clan Smoke Jaguar landed on Lucian as one of the most devastating battles during Operation Revival. The engineers all went their own way, swearing that they would put the design into production. But it was actually Defiance that were the first to put the design down in 3053, beating Independence weaponry by a few months because they had a better understanding of Gauss weaponry. The Gunslinger actually uses fairly limited advanced technology in its core elements, using a standard chassis and 15.5 tons of standard plates to protect it. The engine is where the money starts pouring in with a Vox 255XL, giving it a speed of 54 kilometers per hour. You might think that's not super fast, and that's probably true. I mean, it's a assault mech, so it's not meant to be super fast, but in this day and age, you're going to see a lot of big, fast mechs around. You do have 2 jump jets to give you a range of about 60 meters in the air, allowing you for quick repositioning as well. The electronics are mostly off the rack, except that the targeting computer and the comm system are tied to a Guardian ECM and a Beagle active probe, giving you decent protection against enemy electronics and the ability to detect targets fairly easily. For weapons, the Gunslinger's main weapons are actually a pair of Poland main Model A Gauss rifles. It's a different name and a different serial numbers if you start going into Combine, but it's basically what they are, the standard Lyran Gauss rifle. It's about the only weapon in the Inner Sphere's arsenal at the time that could match its clan counterpart, and it still does. At closer range, the ED is bracketed by 4 standard medium lasers, very basic weapons, but very efficient as well, which gives you a very nice close-range punch and supports your Gauss rifles really well. The rear is protected by a pair of leg-mounted medium pulse lasers. There's a weird, IP mounts pointing kind of backwards, forwards. They can be adjusted. They're kind of weird, but they kind of work. About the only place where I would really use medium pulse lasers or pulse lasers of inner sphere kind, generally, just because when they're pointing backwards, well, you generally are less accurate than when you're trying to shoot something that's in front of you, and the medium pulse lasers are going to be pretty efficient at that. To round things up, you've got a head-mounted small lasers, while the full assembly is cooled by 10 double heat sinks, which is generally enough as Gauss rifles don't generate a whole lot of heat, and those medium lasers also don't generate enough to really be a big problem. The Three Realms all got their share of gunslingers, and it quickly became very popular with just about everyone. Of course, it was able to fight with clan mechs on more or less even ground. At least it was able to fight with some of the big ones and to take care of the smaller ones. But it also outgunned most Inner Sphere mechs in its categories, which made it quite popular in the regular fights that you end up having with your neighbors for all sorts of reasons. It had a fairly high price point, around 17 million C-bills at the time, so it was not really a deterrent for militaries to procure them. I mean, when you've got a military budget that is large enough to scare a small child trying to do maths, it generally isn't the problem to just buy, 10, 20 of those things. But for mercenary commanders or small unit commanders or regional planet commanders, getting a gunslinger was pretty hard because it did require a significant investment. As commanders really enjoyed having a machine that they could keep out of harm's way while actually being able to deal damage, well, things started moving in a new direction with the GUN-2ERD in 3062. There's a few different things that are being taken off here. The rear-facing lasers, the small laser, the Beagle active probe. They take all of that out to add an extra jump jet. Well, an extra jump jet and a C3 master computer, which is not a super common thing on a production unit. The standard medium lasers are upgraded to ER medium lasers, so you are going to run far hotter in this particular one because the heat system is not upgraded. But with a C3 master and good spotters, you're going to be able to take advantage of those 2 Gauss rifles even more than before. This is a very good common mech, and one that is still quite popular to this day. The 2ERD was quite popular in various formations, but some people thought it was going to be vulnerable to ECMs, because people never turned their ECM to ECCM mode, I think. The 2ERD-R came out during the Jihad in 3078 and replaces the Guardian ECM and the standard C3 master computer with a C3 boosted master, which allows you to cut through ECM interference, whatever happens. It is a little bit better because it can cut through bigger ECM interference, I guess, but I don't think it's really that worth it. You do save an extra half ton, so you can stick a ER small laser back onto the machine's head. But once again, I don't think it's a large enough choice for the amount of money that you're going to spend on a C3 boosted master. In our neck of the wood, well, we don't get a whole lot of C3 computers. Actually, it's very hard to get them in the periphery. What Flanagan does a lot of time when we get a 2ERD is rather than try to fix the master computer, which we might not have the parts for, we often take it out completely, start patching things up a little bit, and stick an integrated command console in the head instead. You're not going to be able to share telemetry with other mechs and things like that, but you're going to be able to have the commander and the pilot be able to share some of the control of the mech and have a better command of the whole situation. I think it's a fairly decent way of setting things up for a Gunslinger, and you get 2 extra double heat sinks in order to compensate for the ER medium lasers running you a little bit hotter. It's not our most highest seller, but some people bringing the 2 ERDs in are quite happy with that fix when they don't have those C3s to be used. There is another fairly common refit that's been floating around. It's one that was supposed originally to be a one-of for a Lyran pilot named Jared Killian. The Gunslinger Jared has been seen a few different times here, and what it does is actually use arms from a Zeus in order to mount a 15 rack LRM and a pair of Streak 4 tube SRMs. It modifies your mission profile as a gunslinger. You're going to be a missile slinger, I guess, at this point, instead of a gunner. You are able to get into brawls admirably with a pair of Streak 4 tube SRMs and plenty of medium lasers, and you are able to do the long-range bombardment with the 15 rack LRMs, even though they are generally not going to be doing as much damage as a Gauss rifle. It's a decent side grade of the design, not one that was supposed to be official, but enough people have been asking for it and have been bringing them in that I know it's not a one-of. In 3031, the Draconis Combine decided to bring out the GUM-3RD, trying to mix some clan technology with Inner Sphere equipment from their dealings, let's say it that way, with Clan Novacat. The engine is now a Clan XL, so you save a little bit of space on there, but you tie it to an XL gyro, meaning that you take up more room in the center torso to compensate. You do save a little bit on weight by doing that, though. The torso-mounted lasers are now Clan ER graded, so you've got 4 large lasers around your head instead of 4 medium lasers, which is a fairly nasty combination. Your end-mounted laser and the rear-pointing laser are small X-pulse lasers, which means you actually have something to kill infantry on there, which is sometimes pretty useful. Your big Gauss rifles are now protected by Case 2, which is weird for arm-mounted weapons, but I've seen it done. And the electronics is stripped out to remain just a basic design, but you get 20.5 tons of ballistic reinforced plate in order to protect you against missiles, ballistics, and Gauss weapons. It's going to be very reliable. It's going to be able to stay in the field quite some time with that amount of armor. I'm interested to see how it actually performs. I haven't seen many of those around. I have seen a few of these floating around. Well, those would be coming from our good friends in the Duchy of Tamarin Abbey, making a Marik Gunslinger. What would you expect from a Free Worlds League related machine? Well, rather than the regular Gauss rifle in the arms, you get a pair of light Gauss rifles instead. The ones I've seen have Case 2 mounted on them just in case, for additional protection. The rest of the machine is moved around a little bit. The mobility is bumped up by putting in a larger 340 XL engine, and the ER medium lasers are pointing forward, and the rear pointing lasers are just taken out completely. The electronics is upgraded as well from standard Guardian and Beagle probe to a Bloodhound and an Angel ECM, which is a bit of an interesting setup. I haven't seen many of those. I'm probably not going to say where they're being built because I really don't know, but it's a thing that I've heard is around. With Independence bringing out a brand new Gunslinger, well, I would expect Defiance to bring out their own. I've heard rumblings about it, basically with Defiance using all their knowledge of clan technology in order to build a new mech in the same kind of category. They would start with a Clan XL engine. That's usually an easy thing to set up once you've got the production lines for them, while the arms would pack clan-graded Gauss rifles with Case 2 protection, which saves you a little bit of weight but doesn't increase your firepower. The extra weight could probably go in things like extra heat sinks or a better electronics suite. I'm really not sure because I've not really seen that. I've only heard that they're working on it. If someone has seen one, just send me the specs and I'll review them and see if it's really worth it. The Gunslinger is one of those post-invasion mech that really changed the game. Gauss boats got progressively more common after this one, and even earlier designs started being refitted to be more like the Gunslinger as a Gauss boat. The only major flaw that I see in this design is that it's really not that agile compared to clan mechs in the same bracket, which will be able to pack just about as much punch. Let's put it this way, the Gunslinger would probably be one of the best mech ever made if clan machines did not exist. Honestly, give it a little bit of time and probably a little bit of energy, and the Gunslinger is going to keep getting better and better. It really depends on where the technology wants to go. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.